Hi everyone, Avelina from Arcadier here. Today on Inspire, we have Chia-Ling Koh, Managing Director at OC Queen Street, a Singaporean law firm that's a member of Osborne Clark's international legal practice. Chia-Ling is a seasoned technology lawyer that is trained in data security and AI. He specializes in IT, IP, FinTech, e-commerce, e-payments, and the list goes on. Chia-Ling, thank you for joining us today. It's great to have you.
Yeah, pleasure is all mine.
Wonderful. So maybe you can just tell a little bit about yourself and what you do here at OC Queen Street.
Okay. Yes, I'm the managing director of the Singapore law practice, OC Queen Street. OC Queen Street is a member of international legal practice, Osborne Clark. Over at OC Queen Street, we call ourselves digital business lawyers. By that, we support all digital business projects and digital transformation. We handle a spectrum of work ranging from corporate, commercial to disputes. Most of the projects are data-driven projects.
Wonderful. Well, that works out for us since many of our viewers are in the digital business, specifically at online marketplaces. So maybe you can tell us a little bit about what you think online marketplace owners or digital business owners should consider that's different from normal business owners.
The by and large are very similar, and I think the digital rules that apply will really depend on how the marketplace is set up. For example, who generates the content? Whether the seller generates the content or ultimately is the owner that decides what content goes up onto the platform. Another example might be who ultimately is the seller, because some market owners might decide to sell certain goods. Ultimately, I think also it's a question of the degree of control over the platform and the services.
So on the subject of content that you mentioned, what would the content entail that they should be aware of?
Yeah, so content relates to content put up either by the seller or by the marketplace operator. And the nature of the content comes with it some responsibilities. For example, is there any intellectual property issues? If the platform owner puts up the content, then they're primarily responsible for it. If the marketplace is set up in such a way that it's the seller that puts up the content without or minimal interference from the marketplace owner, then the seller is primarily responsible for it.
Okay, very interesting. Does that change on location, or is that a general, since everybody who's listening is quite global audience, so does that change from country to country, or is that a pretty good general rule that if you're a seller, if you don't have a lot of oversight on what's being sold, then it's really on the seller, or it can be on you as the marketplace owner?
Largely, these are the general principles.
Okay.
They will apply.
All right, good to know.
Yes.
So I know that there's 5 points that you wanted to dive a bit deeper on: intellectual property, data protection, cybersecurity, payments, and selling regulated products and services. So maybe we can just run through them one by one, and you can give a little bit of more insight and details to everyone, since you think that these are the most important parts to touch on.
Yeah, the marketplace is a rather established technology, so by and large the issues are also not new. So these are just some of the points that you have to watch out for, because they are like recurring issues that come up every now and then. So, for example, intellectual property, we have briefly touched on that. Intellectual property, usually it's about intellectual property violations. What do you do when a IP owner tells you that a particular content is infringing? So you need to have a process to handle that sort of complaint. Moving on to, say, data protection. since data is being transmitted, stored, collected on the platform, then you should watch out for possible breaches, and if there are breaches, then what steps do you take? Data privacy or data protection is something which everybody is concerned about. Yeah. So you need to have a system and process to handle that. And as you know, no system is 100% foolproof. Yeah. So you have to take into account that, and in deciding your data privacy and security protocols and strategy, and certainly must have got a protocol to deal with a situation where there is a breach.
Can you give some examples of what a typical protocol or process might be for either the intellectual property and or the data protection?
There are some rules governing the handling of, say, complaints about intellectual property violations, right? So the established rules is that there's a takedown notice procedure, and you should try to comply with those rules, and your terms of use, terms and conditions can take care of that. Okay. For data protection, obviously you need to set up some operational systems and processes within the establishment to handle personal data. In addition to operational compliance, then you also need to watch out for legal compliance. That means to ensure that your documentation, such as your privacy policy and terms of use, are also compliant with the relevant laws. The relevant laws are where you do your business, so it's not limited to any particular jurisdiction.
So on that topic, a lot of our listeners will be from all over the world, and their businesses might span not just where they're from, but everywhere. So how can one easily make sure that your T's and C's are compliant with all these different countries? Is there
so
the easy way? But
the short answer is you don't have an easy way to comply with all the laws of all the countries. So you in a way you need a strategy, and you have to decide for a start which are the countries that you are targeting, and for a start make sure that you comply with those rules, and then you update your privacy policy and the terms of use as and when you find that they have to be done in order to comply with a particular jurisdiction. Rules are changing all the time. Yeah. So our Singapore rules are changing, the European rules are changing, and one needs to keep up to date with the rules. Some privacy policies have got specific sections that deal with a specific country. Yeah. So unfortunately, you can't have a privacy policy that is generic enough for you to handle all jurisdictions.
Yeah. So I know that you also wanted to touch on cybersecurity, payments, and then selling regulated products and services. So maybe you can tell us a bit more about cybersecurity and what considerations everybody should be taking into place, and what maybe processes or practices you tend to see work the best.
Yeah, so cybersecurity is very closely related to data privacy. Data privacy is about personal data. Cybersecurity protects much more than personal data. You could protect confidential data and other types of data. So cybersecurity, you have to look at it from the perspective that it is a protection means to protect data and to minimize or to ensure that data is not leaked as a result of your labs or your service providers' labs.
So in the case of a lot of listeners, they'll be using Arcadier, and obviously we provide good levels of cybersecurity, but at the same time, you can pull your own information from the system. Do you see a lot of issues where there's that kind of oversight on, or lapse of oversight on business owners and just kind of, I don't know, printing things, or is that something that is a concern?
Yeah, so if you're a marketplace owner and you rely on a service provider to host your site, or an environment to create your site, or to have services within a service provider's environment, then you need to know what exactly is the deal, or what exactly is the arrangement, how the data is going to be handled, and where will they be stored. Yeah, and of course, some if there are any service level commitments and security commitments.
Don't worry, everyone. We are well prepared. So, and then now you wanted to next talk about payments. So, what do online marketplace owners have to consider when it comes to?
Yes. Okay. Yes. Payments is a essential function of any marketplace today. The rules governing payments are getting more and more sophisticated. Yeah. So it's definitely a space to watch. And depending on how you set up your payment system, you might attract more regulations.
What kind of payment system would attract more regulations?
If you are, say, for example, issuing e-money or virtual currencies, you might attract more rules. Or if you provide a wallet, payment wallet, you may attract rules. The rules are not absolutely clear at the moment. Even for Singapore, the rules are being updated, and you need to be updated on the latest rules in order for you to establish a payment system.
Got it. So for a lot of new business owners and marketplace owners, they tend to use payment gateways such as Stripe, PayPal, Adyen. Do those come under something that, if they're just using payment gateways, is this something that they should be concerned about, or not so much?
Well, as you rightly pointed out, payment gateways have been there, right? And you just need to be clear what is your arrangement with the payment gateway, and by and large, payment gateways are established, and the rules are also established. Yeah. There might be new rules coming up that might affect how your arrangements with payment gateways, depending on what the exact nature of the payment gateway. But we have to deal with it now when the rules come. So the summary of it all is that payment rules are constantly being updated, and you just need to be updated.
Yeah, I mean, the landscape for everything when it comes to technology is always evolving, since technology is moving at such a fast pace.
Yes.
So the last bit that I know you wanted to talk about was selling regulated products and services. What do people need to consider? What do they need to think about specifically?
Yeah, regulated products and services. For example, if your marketplace purports to sell financial products, insurance products, or professional services such as legal services, then you potentially attract more rules, and your arrangement with those sellers should be reviewed. The arrangement will not be so typical because they are regulated products and services. To give an example, generally in Singapore, lawyers can't share fees. Yeah. And so the arrangement with the marketplace owner needs to take into account this prohibition.
So all these 5 points, obviously it's a lot of information. Is there a resource that everybody can kind of look to find the most up-to-date information? Is this something that's really difficult to find, or is it very open? But you need a law master to know.
To be honest, I might not be the best person to ask. Yeah, it's just that I've never had to like go look for a site where all the answers are there because we provide the information.
Yeah.
So maybe there are some sites that you might be able to find some basic information on the laws in relation to marketplaces. I'm sure there are some legitimate sites.
Yeah, but for the finer points of actually running a business, probably best to seek professional advice.
Yes, I mean, if you're talking to a lawyer, that's what the lawyer will tell you. Yeah.
So in your experience, what do you see that owners tend to struggle with the most from a legal perspective? What do they tend to, not necessarily take into consideration or kind of assume will be fine that they end up actually struggling with?
Yeah, I think today the most challenging bit for marketplace owners are the bits where you try to introduce more and more sophisticated features or services into your marketplace. And I briefly touched on some of them. For example, as part of selling a service or product, you put in an insurance. And because they are regulated services, then rules may or may not kick in depending on how what's the arrangement between the owner and the seller and the third-party service provider. So that is an area which needs which I think pose more problems for market operators. Of course, the other point is again the payment systems that the market operator wants to deploy.
Very interesting. So most of our audience today will be new business owners and just starting out and have limited resources. What would you suggest or advise for them to consider how to prioritize their legal considerations or worries?
I suppose in designing your marketplace, you should start with the basics. Yeah, but then of course I understand that one must try to distinguish itself from others, right? Because you need to find your own USP. Have a lawyer who happens to be a friend to help you go through the legal documentation. There are several stages. One is before you go live, or whenever there is a new product or feature. And also have it constantly reviewed, have the legal requirements reviewed every now and then.
Okay. So before live, you should probably have somebody at least look at it.
Yes.
And then whenever you release a new product or feature.
That's right.
And then periodically revise. How often would you say it would need to be revised? How often is periodically?
Get yourself on a mailing list. Yeah, that would be useful. Of a legal consultant or some sort of consultant that updates you on the digital laws and regulations. That would be useful.
That's good advice. So what are some big things a marketplace owner would want to look at in a seller as they invite sellers to their marketplace? Because I know that you mentioned when, if they don't have a lot of oversight, or if they do, it can obviously depend if they're liable or not.
If you want to make your site different from other sites, then of course you try to sell things that others don't have. Yeah. Of course, one trend is the onboarding of high-end branded goods. Yeah. Traditionally, high-end branded goods stay away from online marketplaces. Yeah. but that trend seems to be going the other way. Yeah, and your marketplace will have to find ways to ensure that the brand value and the perception is all intact.
Okay. So I guess when you bring on new sellers, you really just have to consider where they're actually from and if you're vetting them or not. If you're not vetting them, then it can be a little dangerous. But when it comes to better or high-end goods, I think more of a process is necessary.
Yeah. So there are marketplaces and there are marketplaces. So it really depends on who your target seller and target buyers are, right? And if you are a marketplace that would allow any seller, any individual to sell things, then you are a marketplace of a certain profile, right? And it would be hard for you to monitor each and every one. Yeah, but there are also very interesting tools available today to help you detect genuine sellers and sellers who often sell counterfeit goods, and these are also so there are tools and service providers that can help you review the sellers on your marketplace.
Oh, very interesting. Do any providers come to mind that you would recommend if somebody is selling higher end branded goods that they want to vet their sellers?
I don't think you need to vet higher end sellers, especially if they are the original sellers. Yeah.
All right. Previously, we talked about terms and conditions and how important it is before you go live to, have perhaps a friend look at your T's and C's, and as well as that's something that you should have way in the beginning. So, how does a platform go about making sure its terms are obvious to users, and whether it's making it sure that it's like plain English or making sure that it's very clear to them?
Right. Okay. Yeah. I agree with you that the terms and conditions should be as plain as can be, right, and be brought to their attention, especially if an account needs to be opened, right. There must be an opportunity for the account opener to read the terms and conditions, right. Ideally, the terms and conditions should be easily accessible to. For example, if each and every page has got a link to the terms and conditions, then and that should be done. There must also should be a procedure for notifying users if there are updates to the terms and conditions. So these are some of the things that should be done to bring to the attention of users your terms and conditions, especially most terms and conditions are subject to amendment by the marketplace owner from time to time.
For sure. So what could be the difference of how I'd need to write my legal documentation while using a software as a service versus building it myself? Obviously, Arcadier users are using a SaaS platform, but sometimes people are building it from scratch. So does it differentiate between the two?
I think the approach must still be what is the deal between the parties. Yeah. So the marketplace owner needs to know exactly what the arrangement is. Yeah. So if, for example, the service provider provides an environment, also provides tools, and provides data storage, provides hosting, then the owner needs to know exactly what is the deal between the two parties. So, so really, regardless whether it's a SaaS model or some other model, you just need to know exactly what you are buying into.
So very clearly define everybody's role within the marketplace and how the interaction would be. Yeah,
that's yes, especially when, as a marketplace marketplace operator, you will have got more primary responsibility for the data and the integrity and availability marketplace.
Okay, so second to last question,
Mhm.
just to wrap up soon.
Yeah.
What are some of the issues you see happening or may happen in the future in terms of law and the advancement of technology?
Mm-hmm. Yeah. The obvious thing that comes to mind is the promise of blockchain. Yes. The promise of blockchain that seeks to cut out the intermediary. Yes. We have to wait and see whether it's going to be a true disruptor to all marketplaces.
Do you think that it will drive a lot more efficiency and make the world a better place? Or what are your thoughts on how it could be seen developing within technology and law, or how it will be encompassed within global legal rules?
Well, the blockchain at this point is a solution that is looking for problems. Yeah, and because the idea is that if you use the blockchain technology, you do not need intermediary. Yeah. So everybody is thinking about cutting out the intermediary today. Yeah. So you look at it from the perspective of the marketplace provider. Can we really take away the marketplace provider and have a sale of goods and services without the intermediary? And this is an interesting question for me. Yeah. Given the state of play, marketplaces are not entirely digital, because you still have got to deliver the goods. Yeah. But what if you are a marketplace that do not deal with physical goods, digital goods, or services? Then those might be a target by blockchain advocates to see whether the intermediary can be taken away and yet have a viable marketplace.
Very interesting to see what ends up happening.
Yes. Of course, then the rules will follow. Yeah.
All right. So last question that I have for you is, what is one piece of advice that you'd like to give everyone today?
Mm-hmm. Look for a lawyer and become his friend. Yes.
All right. Thank you so much, Chia-Ling, for joining us.
Thank you so much.
That's it for today's session of Inspire. Thank you for joining us, and until next time, be inspired.